Spoilers, offensive content, all the usual jazz. This is Two Fat Guys Talk, episode 97. I am Carlos. Hello, Dave.
Well, no, I need to introduce myself then.
Oh,
I'm good.
No, you can introduce yourself. I don't mind. Go ahead, Dave, introduce yourself.
This is Dave.
Sweet. You didn't need to take 5 years to do it. Just done it right away, you know. Asshole.
Jerk.
This could escalate very quickly. So, Dave, you have no doubt heard that the follow-up to the NES Mini has been announced. The SNES Mini.
Shock.
It includes a whole bunch of Super Nintendo titles, and somewhat shockingly, one unreleased Super Nintendo title that was completed, but never released. Star Fox 2, which is huge for Nintendo to admit exists and to put out. Dave, what are your initial impressions on the SNES Mini?
Well, they've got a decent selection here of games, except...
why don't you list them off, and we'll talk about if it's a good inclusion or not.
So, and I'm looking at their promotional ad, which they're highlighting certain titles, but 21 classic Super NES games, including Super Mario World.
Overrated. Mario...
Yes, you Yoshis.
Super Mario World is easily the most overrated 2D Mario.
No, it's Mario 64.
Okay, I guess we are working under a different definition of 2D.
Oh, 2D, okay.
Super Mario World is actually kind of dull and boring. And the game was actually, it was made in a hurry, I understand that. But Mario 3 was better and Yoshi's Island were better. It was better.
My first complaint comes from that. Why are you giving me Super Mario World? Why aren't you getting Mario All-Stars?
You mean the version of it that includes Mario World, right? That came with certain Super Nintendos?
Yes.
That had the new Luigi sprite?
Well, not just that. You had Mario 1, Mario 2, Mario 3.
Yeah, I know. You know why? Because they sold Super Mario All-Stars as a fully priced Wii game, and I bet you anything that's what they're going to do again.
Then we have Mario Kart.
Good choice. So Super... in some ways, one of the best Mario Kart titles is the original.
I don't know if I go that far, but yes, it's a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
Zelda.
I was about to ask which one, and then I remembered to write. For some mysterious reason, there was only one proper Zelda title on Super Nintendo.
Exactly.
The Satellaview game does not count.
No. F-Zero.
Good choice. Even better choice if they somehow give it multiplayer.
That would be nice. And then Super Metroid.
Fantastic choice. One of the best games ever made.
So, I mean, for their highlights, for those 5 titles, should have had Mario All-Stars in there with the previous versions of Mario 1, 2, and 3. But you've got some good choices there. Those were highlights of the system.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Star Fox 2.
The original Star Fox is one of the items that's included. Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. So Star Fox, super solid game. I like the original SNES Star Fox more than I like the N64 one. I will say that I like the music in the N64 one better than the original, even though the common consensus that the Super Nintendo version's music is better. What did you think of Star Fox?
I got into the Super NES era late. And I played Star Fox in an arcade of all places. Mm-hmm. And at our Klondike days in the big screen.
Oh, that's
during a tournament.
That's our Edmonton festival that is now called K-Days. And was once called, in a very poor decision, Capital X.
Anyway, yeah, so I played it very little. I've never gone back and played it again. Mm-hmm. It was never my thing, even when I got into the system so late. So I don't really have a really big opinion on the Star Fox series in general. The controls were fine. The graphics were, early 3D graphics, but way superior to anything that anybody else was doing at the time.
There were graphics in Star Fox, and Star Fox 2 was even better here, that were better than stuff on the Jaguar. Easily. Tempest 2000, for all its praise, could have been a Super FX chip title on the Super Nintendo.
And looked better.
You know, you don't need to make too many improvements to Tempest 2000, though. It'll look about the same, and it could still work. Probably play better on a Super Nintendo pad, despite my grievance with Super Nintendo pads.
So I'll take a Super Nintendo pad over the piece of shit N64 controller any day of the week.
Oh, sure.
We have Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 2 Turbo, right?
Yes, Turbo.
Yeah, that matters. There are 17 different Street Fighter 2s.
Sorry, the logo here is very small.
It's fine. Don't you have a list?
No,
Like
it doesn't
text
actually list them.
Okay, there is a list.
There is somewhere, but
okay, I'm gonna bring up a list, Dave, because you're operating off some shitty GIF.
I can see everything except for that logo very well.
Okay, so it's Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Yeah.
The best Street Fighter 2 on SNES, and actually a really good Street Fighter game in its own right.
So that's fine. While I'm not surprised this next one's there, this is one I would have taken out.
Huh.
Super Punch-Out.
Super Punch-Out was a fun game. You shut your mouth. It had some great designs in it, like Mad Clown and the Bruiser Brothers, and then Old Man who beats you with a stick.
Snore.
I would rather play Super Punch-Out over the original or the Wii one. Any day of the week.
Okay, so you'd rather have AIDS than syphilis. Great.
I was about to get back at you, but you're making fun of all of Punch-Out. Yes, you are correct.
Castlevania 4.
Good choice. Super solid Castlevania game. I would have liked them to put Dracula X in there, because the Super Nintendo one, here's my shots fired moment, is way better than that shitty PC Engine one.
Donkey Kong Country 1.
Yeah, bad choice. That is the poorest of the Donkey Kong Country games. They should have put 2. If they only had a choice of 1, it should have been 2. Easily.
I'm sure they were going for Origins.
Why don't they have all 3 of them on there?
Because they were probably limited for space.
Shut the fuck up, Nintendo.
Mega Man X.
Here's another one where, yeah, Mega Man X is revolutionary and iconic. Mega Man X2 is really the better game.
It is, but Mega Man X is pretty solid. We're not talking a Donkey Kong Country 1 to 2 comparison here. We're talking like just slightly down from 2. So I don't
think X2 is a slight upgrade. I think it's a significant upgrade.
I think X is still a very solid title.
Sure.
Whereas Donkey Kong Country 1 isn't compared to 2.
This is another case where they could have had all the Mega Man games on SNES.
They should have.
From X1 to X3, 7, and Soccer.
Well, okay, let's not get stupid.
Oh, Soccer sucks. It's a shitty game. I'm just saying it could have been here.
Kirby Superstar.
Fantastic choice, and the definitive version of that game.
Which is funny how they're putting Kirby Superstar in, but not Mario All-Star.
Kirby Superstar is not a collection of old Kirby games. It's its own game.
Probably the best Final Fantasy on Super NES, Final Fantasy 3.
But yep, 6 and 3 originally when it was numbered.
Yeah.
Yeah, this SNES original is really the best version of that game.
It is.
You could play the shitty GBA remake, or the garbage mobile Steam remakes, or you can play the original. Just don't sketch! For the love of God. And you know what? Give yourself a challenge. Don't vanish, Doom Mini Boss.
Here's another title that I would have taken out, because it's a waste.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby's Dream Course.
Fuck a you.
Look,
Fuck a you.
It's not a bad game.
It is a fantastic game.
But there are so many better games to put in.
There aren't. That is a top 10 SNES game.
No.
The only reason I could see not including it here is because Kirby's Dream Course is one of those shitty virtual console ports that for some reason gets dimmer for no reason at random intervals. That's actually way worse for your eyes than just playing the original at a consistent brightness.
Then we have Star Fox. We've already talked about that. We have Yoshi's Island.
Yeah.
What could be one of the worst
Mario
games.
Easily the best 2D Mario.
I got bored.
That's because you suck. And just a step down from the Galaxy games. By far one of the best looking and playing Mario games of all time. Easily superior to Mario World 1. and you are wrong for disliking it.
Whatever. Surprisingly, Super Mario RPG.
Yeah, that is a huge one to be on there. That is a huge title.
I'm surprised that's there.
It's on Virtual Console, so...
Still, it took a long time for them to get that there.
Mm-hmm. That's another Virtual Console game that you have to play with visual changes because some of the spell effects were nerfed because of concerns with epilepsy.
Oh, lovely. Contra 3.
Yeah, good choice. Good choice. Contra 3 is a fantastic game.
Not my favorite Contra game, but if you gotta limit yourself to Super NES, that's the best one.
Mm-hmm.
Secret of Mana.
That's a good choice. My only gripe with having Secret of Mana is that I want an actual sequel to Secret of Mana.
You want a good sequel.
Yeah, no, I meant what I said. I want an actual sequel.
Okay.
I want a sequel that takes place a year after the events of that game, that follows Randy and Pyram.
Okay.
And the aftermath of dealing with Popoi's death. I'm using their canon names. You can name them whatever you want.
Hey, fair enough. Another surprise for me, Earthbound.
I'm not an Earthbound fan. Earthbound to me is like Yoshi's Island to you. Everyone loves it except for me. And I think it's a good choice to put on here, though, because it is really well liked.
I mean, one of the mechanics I loved from that game was the fact that once you're stronger than the enemy, battle over.
Unless they hit you in the back. But
well, yeah.
I like that an enemy can do more damage to you than you have hit points. But as long as you're fast enough in putting your commands before the hit points actually count down, you can still win.
Yeah, and then Super Ghosts and Ghouls.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I am not the guy to go, games are too hard and fake challenge and all that, because no, that game is really well made. I was never a fan, and it's not because it's too hard, I just didn't really care. But a good choice.
That's the entire list.
Let's talk about Star Fox 2.
Before we jump into Star Fox 2, what would you take out and what would you substitute with?
I wouldn't take out any of the games that are there right now. I would include Mario All-Stars, and you know what? I would include the version of Mario All-Stars that had Mario World, so that you get the new Luigi sprite, and then you can just leave out the original Mario World, because at that point you don't need it.
Yep.
I would prefer enhanced ports like the Game Boy Advance versions of all those Mario games, but this is Nintendo. Of course they won't. There's no reason why all the Mega Man and Donkey Kong Country titles couldn't be here. They didn't just have to pick one each. There's no reason Castlevania Dracula X couldn't have been here, because it is the definitive version of that game. Mario RPG was there, and Square had Final Fantasy VI. Another very popular Super Nintendo one was Final Fantasy IV or 2. That could have been on there pretty easily. And I'm kind of curious why it's not, because even though I like 6 more than 4, Japan loves 4 more than 6 by far. So why isn't 4 on there? It should be. And I would like to play the original sometimes, why not? Maybe it's because 4 has just had so many remakes, I guess.
So for me, if I had to keep it to the 21 titles they've gone with here, I would pull Super Punch-Out.
Why? Why are you pulling any game?
If I had to keep to the 21, there are games I would pull here and put in better ones.
Fuck that restriction. Don't pull anything. Nintendo didn't need to follow that restriction.
I'm just following what they got here.
Okay, fine. Pull out a good game, and what garbage are you going to put in its place?
Breath of Fire 2.
Right, so instead of leaving the superior Super Punch-Out, you're going to put in an overrated entry that was also very badly translated.
It's either Super Punch-Out or Kirby's Dream Course. I'd replace one of the Breath of Fires.
Right, so you want to take out a good game and put in something that's worse than it.
Well, that's your opinion.
Oh, sure, it's my opinion. I'm aware it's my opinion. I'm just saying, Nintendo didn't need to limit this to 21.
Of course they did. These are just ROMs.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're their official ROMs, sometimes worse. This is another thing I've been telling people. Don't buy this garbage. First of all, you're only going to find it from scalpers at this point anyway, so you are paying way more than $80. Secondly, they come with facsimiles of SNES controllers. SNES controllers are pioneering in their design and otherwise flimsy pieces of crap. If you play this on an emulator on your computer, and if you feel guilty, go find the originals to buy so that you got that legality covered. You can use superior controllers and not place shitty ROMs that dim the screen, which makes the game worse, like in Kirby's Dream Course, or that remove spell effects that aren't actually causing epilepsy, like in Mario RPG, and no doubt in other titles here too. Don't buy this garbage, especially not the ugly North American version. If you are going to buy this, buy the superior looking versions from other regions, because their Super Nintendo / Famicoms just look way better.
I am surprised that Chrono Trigger isn't in.
Chrono Trigger's overrated. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Chrono Trigger is massively overrated and does not belong on a top 10 list of best 16-bit games.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you that it can be overrated.
Mm-hmm.
If you think Kirby's Dream Course makes it on there and Chrono Trigger doesn't,
well,
you're nuts.
First of all, it did. And secondly, I'm not nuts. Okay, first of all, the SNES version of Chrono Trigger is the best version. Easily, by far. Because it doesn't have bullshit crap that ties it to Chrono Cross. If you can play Chrono Trigger completely in a bubble where Chrono Cross does not exist. So props to that, and honestly, they should have included it just for popularity. It's overrated because that game is a mess. When you actually look at it with the nostalgic glasses off, and you look at it after reading about the development hurdles it had, you see that there was a lot of schism in the development. They tried to make it an all-stars game where lots of different writers were contributing stories, different writers contributed to different eras, and for some reason, talentless shitbag Masato Kato got to write the whole scenario, which was why the Kingdom of Zeal storyline, the worst storyline in that game, became the overarching storyline that everything was based off of. Chrono Trigger, I would love to see a remake of that ignores the old canon and that completely just shits on Masato Kato. Square, have your people contact my people. Super overrated. A fine game. It is nowhere near the best 16-bit RPG. Phantasy Star 4 is way better than it. And arguably way better than Final Fantasy VI, no matter how much I love Final Fantasy VI. And I know this was a classic, Super Nintendo Classics, but Phantasy Star 4 should have been on there. Fuck it.
Oh, come on.
You can get on Virtual Console. A really good use of your Virtual Console dollars, I might add.
Yes, it was.
Star Fox 2?
Hey, Star Fox 2 is your baby.
So, Star Fox 2, and Dave is aware of this, but perhaps our listeners are not. Star Fox 2 is the sequel to Star Fox on Super Nintendo. It had a lot of stuff that eventually found its way into other Star Fox games, like certain levels were more free roaming and whatnot. Star Fox 2 also had new characters, improved Super FX graphics. You see it in motion and you're like, wow, they really did improve a lot of the Super FX stuff from the first game. Also, fun fact, Star Fox 2 was complete. It was complete. You can find completed ROMs of it that have very little extra stuff added by hackers because the game was like 99% ready. It was ready to go. Nintendo is a shitbag company. They've always been a shitbag company. They always will be a shitbag company. They continue to be a shitbag company to this day. This is true regardless of me liking past Nintendo E3 presentations and generally liking more Nintendo games than I like of their competitors from a hardware standpoint. Nintendo's a shitbag company. They fired Alison Rapp because she was being targeted by Gamergate. Fuck Gamergate. Fuck you. If you hate that statement, you can eat the fattest part of my ass. They hired a known harasser, Adam Baldwin, to do voices in their games. Fuck that guy too. And they've been doing this for years. Way back in the day, there's a European development studio that doesn't exist anymore called Argonaut Games in Great Britain. And Argonaut Games co-developed Star Fox with Nintendo. Smash hit Star Fox, which is why Argonaut Games was put hard at work on Star Fox 2. Nintendo decided that, I think this might have came from Shigeru Miyamoto, a great designer who was also a bit of a shitbag, but we'll talk about that another time. I guess Nintendo and Miyamoto decided, you know what, we don't want this to take away from our upcoming N64, and we're developing a version of Star Fox for the N64 in-house at Nintendo. So not only are we not going to release this completed game on SNES, which is ready to go, we're also not going to pay you our agreed upon terms. And that's part of the reason that I believe Argonaut Games went under, is because they were owed money by Nintendo, and they were never paid. The agreements were not honored. And you can find interviews about this, and they said kind of back and forth conflicting stories from both Argonaut and Nintendo Online. So Star Fox 2 has a bit of a troubled history, yet it was complete. Now, I'm kind of curious if they're going to shove the game on there as is, or if they're going to add to it, like perhaps add difficulty sliders, because I guess the originally released game was a tad too easy from what I've read. Would Star Fox 2 sell you on this if you didn't have to pay $500 to a scalper to get it?
No.
That's what I thought. Me neither. You can go find the Star Fox 2 ROM. Again, emulation, I encourage you to have the original titles. Don't break the law. But it is really the best way to enjoy these SNES games. The Virtual Console butchers them. This would be true even if the Virtual Console worked across multiple hardware platforms and didn't make you buy the same game again on different platforms. Just fuck Nintendo so hard. What do you think overall of this announcement of the SNES Mini?
Well, we knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we're going to see a N64 version.
That one might be fascinating just because a lot of those games can be difficult to emulate and find elsewhere.
Really?
Don't ask me for examples.
You've been able to emulate freaking N64 games since like a week after Zelda 64 hit.
No, I know, not well, but I understand.
Well, back then.
No, I know, and today's my dinky laptop can probably do it. I understand that. I'm saying that there are some games that had certain hardware concerns, because much like the Super FX chip, sometimes there was onboard hardware on these cartridges, right? So that's all I'm saying.
Even the Layer 7 effects of...
Mode 7?
Yeah, Mode 7.
Yeah.
For Chrono Trigger was a pain back in the day.
It shouldn't be. Mode 7 was built into the Super Nintendo hardware.
I'm talking way back in the day. I'm talking, the first few months of like ZSNES.
Oh God, ZSNES.
Hey, it's still out and still the best one out there.
It's not the best one at all. There are way better, way more modern emulators than ZSNES.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
ZSNES
I haven't had to use one in years.
ZSNES had its day. Yeah, like the Super FX chip was a problem for a while. Capcom's C4 chip, which was used in Mega Man X2 and 3, was a bit of a problem. Which, now that I think about it, might be why these games aren't in this collection.
Maybe.
Yeah, if I had money, I would have pre-ordered as many as I could right now when I heard the announcement. I would have done it this morning, which is when we heard the announcement, and I would have scalped those so hard. I don't have the money to do that. And I certainly wouldn't have kept any of them unless they started printing more. But Nintendo has already said they are manufacturing more than the NES Mini, but manufacturing ends at the end of this year. So,
No, I won't scalp stuff just because I hate scalpers, so I refuse to be one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I hear you. Speaking of scalping, Dave, you and I have been playing a lot of a certain Final Fantasy game.
How does scalping get into
Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood?
Scalping? Really?
I played a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV a few years ago. Kind of put on the back burner. Always wanted to go back boner. Put on the back boner. Always wanted to go back, and finally recently did. Jumped on board again on PlayStation 4, because at the moment I don't have a computer that can run most games on well. It's kind of ironic. My Kiki, a few rooms down, plays on PC on a controller, an Xbox One pad of all things. And I play a few rooms away on PlayStation 4 on a mouse and keyboard. By the way, works fantastic with mouse and keyboard. And this is what I'm always saying.
As it should.
There's no reason why Diablo 3 on PC couldn't have had gamepad support. And Diablo 3 on console couldn't have keyboard mouse support for people who want it. There's just no reason. So, I have quite a few thoughts about Final Fantasy XIV and about certain things it does better than WoW, because honestly, it's A Realm Reborn bore so much from WoW. Improved in certain ways, did certain things different, was worse in certain ways, whatever. I kind of want to know your overall impressions of Final Fantasy XIV, you having jumped back in recently yourself, played it a bunch. Let me know what you feel about the game, because I got a lot of thoughts about the game and MMOs.
Well,
feel free to ask me questions and interrupt me, because this is going to be a back and forth.
Let me start with, I have jumped into Final Fantasy XIV twice. I was an original beta tester for the original Final Fantasy XIV.
Pre-Realm Reborn.
Oh my god.
Final Fantasy XIV, which I heard was just maybe slightly better than certified worst game ever made, Final Fantasy XI.
So, let me set the stage here.
Setting stage.
So, Final Fantasy XI, when we first joined into it, it had such great things like software mouse. Where, if you've never played a game with software mouse support...
Are you talking about 11 now or 14?
I said 11.
Okay, making sure, because, you know...
I have to go back and forth a little bit here.
Sure, continue.
So, for 11, with software mouse support, what that meant is, if you moved your cursor from one side of the screen to the other, while your cursor may have gone over there, in literal terms, you watched it slowly smooth over to the other side of the screen. It did not have hardware mouse support, so there was no quick movement, quick gain to interface points, quick anything.
Quick is not a word I would use to describe anything in Final Fantasy XI.
I mean, Final Fantasy XI, most of your attacks you made macros for because...
There was no hotbar.
There was no hotbar. Fast forward 5+ years, and we go to Final Fantasy XIV's
Pre-Realm Reborn.
Pre-Realm Reborn beta. And I got invited because I had been a Final Fantasy XI player for enough years they wanted me to try it. I'm like, okay, sure, let's jump in here. It looks really neat. All these new graphics. We're going to go to a whole new world. Let's do this. What do you mean you still have software mouse support? Something that I will admit, 11 only took a month or so to fix on the North American realms. Because we weren't putting up with that bullshit. So to come in day one into the beta and find out that it started with software mouse support, I already knew I was in for some hell. The game fires up and immediately crashes.
A good sign.
Did not have proper driver support for NVIDIA cards. So I hit the fan forums because beta forums didn't exist because while they wanted feedback, they didn't want feedback to get out. Had to mess with a whole bunch of stuff. Get back into the game and, it looked neat. Spent some time making the character creator. Wasn't as many options as I was used to, but, I mean, my character looked kind of cool. Great! Start the game. The opening video was just jaw-dropping. That's something that Square has always done well, is their videos.
Sure. Not always well, but that one was pretty decent. I remember Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and 9 and 10.
Shut your mouth. The FMVs were always high quality.
If you insist.
And then I get into the game, and 14 was made for joystick support. That was obvious right from the get-go. This was a console game on PC. So there's no help. There's no map. There's no anything to help you along at this point. And I'm like, okay, this is beta. They're working out the kinks. What I didn't realize was that release was in 3 weeks. And this was day one of beta. And so I'm like, okay, fine. You want to make this for a fucking console? Great. Xbox controller. What the fuck is this shit? Like, there was no fucking control help. It was figure it out for your fucking self. Enemies. They still actually kept from Final Fantasy XI this guy is level 1. Oh, that one's the god of all fucking rabbits. No XP loss for death. I can say they improved that.
Yeah. Anyone who defends XP loss for death is probably an asshole.
Yes, absolutely. Not even fucking Dark Souls has you lose experience. That says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. So, I'm finally managed to get into town. And I'm talking to people trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, and somebody gives me a quest. Yes! I have some place to go! Where the fuck am I going? Like, literally, there was no quest indicators. It was like, go to Shakamak over in the Akaboth.
We'll talk about the terrible names in Final Fantasy XIV a little bit later.
At least, if there had been a fucking map that I could have looked up in-game that said that Shakapoof over at Akamoth was over here, we're good!
Man, I got a nice summer home over at Shakapoof over at Akamoth.
It just... I tried. I tried to like this beta. And after realizing that like there was still no real hotbar support. It was still clicking on guys and
opening menus,
macros. And it was absolute fucking garbage. So, okay, I'm done. I'm fucking done. And I think I spent maybe 2 hours before I uninstalled it. And sure enough, it launched to the weakest support by gamers or by audiences, even compared to the fucking Final Fantasy movie. So the game launched to absolute lukewarm reviews, absolute horrible review scores. The fact that the leveling mechanics in this game actually held people back. Supposedly allowed casuals to keep up with hardcore players. Because literally, you could only level so far before you stopped getting experience.
Now, what made you start getting experience again, though? Maybe
time.
Clarify that.
Literally, every week, you had basically a decreasing bar that you could only get experience for your main class that much. And once that bar was empty, that was it. You had to go to a separate class or a separate job or something to gain experience for that role. It was a mess. And to the point where Square stopped charging for the game per month. The monthly cost was removed. You still had to buy the game.
Until Realm Reborn.
We'll get there.
Sure.
For 2 years, this game almost sunk Square Enix as it was. They put so much money into this game, and they were getting nothing out of it because even the Square execs came to the realization that they could not charge a per month charge for this game.
Mm-hmm.
It was broken on every fundamental level, and it was not fun. Only the most hardcore Final Fantasy players stuck around.
Final Fantasy XI is just about the worst game ever made. I wasted a year of my life on this garbage, and I regret that so hard. Easily the worst MMO I've ever played, and probably in the top 3 worst video games of all time. And I rank it as worse than E.T. on Atari 2600, because at least E.T. ended in a reasonable amount of time and did not feel like a second job just to function. Final Fantasy XI is trash, and its design is trash, and its defenders don't know what they're talking about. It is a garbage fucking game.
For example, for Final Fantasy XI,
mm-hmm.
It is the only MMO in existence I've actually brought up an Excel spreadsheet of whether it's my time is worth more to buy in-game gold or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because to get it like 1,000 gold would take me like 15 hours, whereas 2 hours of actual getting paid to work would get me 1 million kind of thing.
Final Fantasy XI, I don't understand how any rational human being can defend this garbage. Just a few examples of how terrible this game is. It had subclassing, which in theory lets you customize your job by choosing a sub-job and then creating a new unique playstyle where you use your main job abilities and some of your support job abilities. In practice, there are only a few or one viable sub-jobs for every job.
Yeah.
If you wanted to tank as a warrior, you subbed ninja. And you wasted money on scrolls to do Utsusemi, which was a ninja spell that for some reason didn't use MP but used physical reagents. And if you did not do this, you were a shitty tank. And you might as well just give up now. Oh, to level past level 10 with most classes required you to group. You would have to send out tells looking for leveling parties. Literally groups, not to run dungeons or raids, to level. Find a corner in a leveling zone and one at a time, go grab a mob, bring it back, kill it. Go grab a mob, bring it back. Don't grab the wrong king of all rabbits, or they'll wipe your party and everyone, or people might lose levels.
And just to mention on that, when you clicked on an enemy, it did not tell you shit about that enemy. You wrote a macro to identify the enemy so you knew whether it was higher or lower level. Because they would mix in level 10 guys with level 1 enemies.
Yeah, and that didn't even work later, because any enemy that could give you experience level 30 plus could not be soloed by any job that was not Beastmaster or Red Mage. And even Red Mage had a much more difficult time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there was no soloing in that game at all past level 10 for any class other than maybe 2 with the right builds. And those right builds required you to group first. Fucking, if you wanted to be a paladin, you were subbing warrior. Because the warrior sub is the only sub that gave you provoke. If you wanted to be a monk tank, you had to sub warrior for the same reason. If you were a red mage, you'd think that you could be a hybrid caster swordsman, right? Nah, you had to equip a staff, even though it was not your best weapon, and use buffs and debuffs, because that's what red mages do. It's just like how in pre Burning Crusade WoW, if you were a druid, you were a healer. No ands, ifs, or buts. Doesn't matter, they had 2 other trees to do. Final Fantasy XI is hot trash.
Let me talk briefly about crafting.
Can we not?
Oh, come on.
I think people are already shutting off the podcast.
Crafting, well, if we're doing a comparison to WoW, this is a really good comparison because they stole the mechanic of having spawn points come up and it be all shared.
In 14?
In 14.
Okay,
no, sorry.
You have to mention it. We're talking about 11.
We're talking about 11, yes. Okay. And I started to try and do crafting because I like to craft in my games.
I don't know why, but you do.
Makes me lots of money.
Sure.
Now it does, at least. Anyway, 11's was the worst type of sharing because you not only had to use a macro to detect the spawn points, but everybody shared it. And so you had entire groups of people in a small area trying to find all the spawn points. You could go hours without getting a single hit on a tree to get wood, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It was, again, hot garbage.
I remember crafting and gaining 0.1 of a point.
Yep.
And I remember when I gave up that game, my mood improved. I was sleeping better. I was eating better. Final Fantasy VII is the worst. And that by itself made me completely swear off the next Final Fantasy MMO. Come Yoshi P, almost the anti-Square guy who I honestly think hates Squaresoft. And he's tasked with turning around Final Fantasy XIV's fortune. So here's what Yoshi P does. He's like, you know what? What's the most popular MMO in the world? It's World of Warcraft. Let's borrow what works for that, completely remake from the ground up Final Fantasy XIV, borrow the best from WoW, and let's try again with a new expansion, a new storyline reason for why the world has changed so much, A Realm Reborn, Final Fantasy XIV. Night and day. It is as if Final Fantasy XIV, for the uninitiated, if you've played WoW, take WoW and give it a Final Fantasy skin. And that is roughly what Final Fantasy XIV is. It's fun. It's easy to play. It has WoW questing where you go grab a quest, go do it, come back and get a reward. It has WoW-style hotbars. It has controller support if you don't like a keyboard and mouse that, from what I understand, really works. I tried it myself, but I'm more of a keyboard mouse guy. You can use controller or keyboard mouse regardless of what system you're playing it on. I play with a keyboard and mouse on my PlayStation 4, for instance. And it works beautifully. It is... Yoshi P has done so much to this game. He's included stuff like Triple Triad, which was a big fan demand thing. Dave hates Triple Triad. God knows why. He added like little callbacks to their Final Fantasy games, like the Empire using Magitech armor, a rideable Magitech mount, guest characters from other Final Fantasies. The latest expansion has an area called Doma, which plays a remix of the Doma theme from Final Fantasy VI. Yoshi P seems to love Final Fantasy VI a ton, by the way. And classes and jobs, long story, there is a difference, but for all intents and purposes, let's just call them classes, because it's just easier that way. Classes each have a distinct feel and a distinct play style that's easy to understand. It kind of operates under the WoW global cooldown theory, although the global cooldown in Final Fantasy XIV is like 2.5 seconds, whereas in WoW it's like 1.5. So it definitely feels a little slower, which is not wrong. It's just this game style is just a little more chill, is all. It has, similar to WoW, it has a duty finder, which is a dungeon finder. It does a few things better than WoW in that regard. If you're a high-level character going through Duty Finder, it'll still pair you up with low-level players who might be doing it for their first time, and it scales your level down, but you still get rewards and experience according to your current level, right?
Yep.
It'll mark new players to a dungeon with an icon, and that lets you know that they're new and they might need help with the mechanics. The PvP I haven't gotten into yet, but I heard that a lot of good things about it. There's no gear. Gear doesn't matter in PvP, and every class has its own PvP skill set, along with customizable PvP-only skills. So PvP is exactly the ideal, what I've been saying forever that WoW should do, right? Final Fantasy XIV is apparently a big breadwinner for Square now. Square seriously did something Square never does, and that's have a positive PR campaign to bring one of their franchises back from the brink. And it worked. And now, after A Realm Reborn, there was Heavensward, and now Stormblood, which came out here recently. So, Dave, you and I have been playing this quite extensively recently. I originally made a character in A Realm Reborn, and then I left that alone for a while, and then for various reasons I didn't go back to it until recently. I gotta tell you, I'm enjoying the hell out of this game. I'm even enjoying the hell out of the group stuff, and I don't like forced grouping, which is why I don't take MMOs seriously. But when storyline has needed me to group for a dungeon, it's so painless. Partly also because I'm playing a tank role, so I don't have to wait at all. But what has your experience been jumping back into Final Fantasy XIV recently? Like, and have you tried any of the Heavensward and Stormblood stuff? What have you done since you've been back, and how do you feel about it?
Okay, so this actually has two parts, because I came back after Realm Reborn went live, and before either of the two expansions. That was 2.5, 3 years ago. And I'll admit, I jumped in, I was having fun, but here's the problem with Final Fantasy XIV then and even now.
Go ahead.
The crafting takes a great deal of time and effort to do. Now, some people will instantly come back and say, oh, well, you can do what's called quick synthesis, which is after you've made something once, you can just tell it quick how many you want, and it will just do it. Here's my comeback to that. Why would I do quick synthesis when it's only going to give me a quarter of the experience that would normally give me? So
I've done zero crafting, so I cannot verify or
crafting is
counter any of this.
Crafting is a multi-step process, especially as you get better at it.
It should be noted that in this game, you don't need to make multiple characters to experience different classes, because you can switch classes like in 11. And you do that by just switching your main hand item. If you equip an archer's bow, you're an archer, and you're at whatever archer level you are at. And the crafting system uses that class system. When you equip a tool in your main hand for the craft, you become that class that is for that craft, like blacksmith, for instance.
I have hotbar set up to go back and forth between every single job or class I've done as well as job.
Sure.
So I have done all of the crafting jobs. All of them.
All of them.
And Currently, they are...
We use class and job interchangeably, by the way. There is a difference. They're all classes.
Classes are the actual, like, Red Mage.
Red Mage is not a class in this game. It is a job. It's not a class. Okay, I was hoping we didn't have to explain this, but now we do. Classes are the base roles that you can be, and jobs are more advanced, specialized classes that have a unique meter of their own. Most of them are based off of a class. Some of them are their own thing where they start at a higher level because they came as part of an expansion. The ones that have no base class to them are Dark Knight, Astrologian, Red Mage, and Samurai. Red Mages are not a class in this game.
Okay.
The crafting classes, though, are classes. There, I just wasted so many pointless minutes describing a weird class system.
So the crafting classes I've leveled almost exclusively for the past few days, kind of thing. And my main class is the Archer.
Uh-huh. Have you become a bard yet?
No, I'm just sure. I'm 27.
Gotcha.
I get that at level 30.
I recently became a warrior for my Marauder. So.
Yeah. Wow, you're actually a higher level than I am. But then again, I probably put, of my 160 hours into the game, I'm betting 100 hours that was crafting.
I skip every story cutscene.
Why?
Because the story's nothing to write home about, and I don't care.
Then why are you playing the game?
Because I don't play MMOs to experience their deep narratives. I play MMOs because I find the mechanics fun, and sometimes I want to play with people. That's it. Here's what I know about the story, okay? Some people need me to put my axe into some guy's brain. So I go do it until money comes out. And then I go tell the person who asked me to, and then they give me money. And so forth. I've been writing my own story, and here it is. These people can't do anything, and I'm the only competent person on this planet.
Oh my god.
Something about beastmen. I fought Ifrit at one point. And I guess there's some kind of, evil god. Whatever.
You suck!
I actually tried just kind of watching a cutscene, and I'm kind of like, wow, I am so bored. Escape, can't skip this cutscene. Well, okay. So I just hit the accept button until it's over.
Oh, you suck.
Why are you playing the game and only crafting? What is wrong with you? This isn't Harvest Moon!
At least I watched
Get
the
out
fucking
there
cutscenes.
and drive your arrows into some fool's brains!
That's part of crafting, too.
Okay, mix them!
I am!
Oh, a Final Fantasy game! I can't wait to do fuck all and hit a fucking nail with a hammer! I'm doing a hammer nail motion.
Well, they've been doing that since Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah, they have been. After they destroy a goblin and his family.
I've been keeping my crafting up to craft all the up-to-date stuff for my jobs.
Oh, yeah. And
my classes, rather.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've been relying on quest rewards from the mainline story quests. And now that I'm at 30, I'm going to just delve into PvP and see how I like it, because you gain experience from that. So I've been enjoying it, I gotta tell you. It's like a Final Fantasy flavored WoW, with some systems that are better than WoW, and some systems that aren't quite as good. The class system, I did not like in how in vanilla WoW, in PvE, every class had a role, and all their other specs were ignored. So if you were a paladin, you were a healer. No ands, ifs, or buts. There was one tank warrior, even though other classes had tanking trees. It's much better now in WoW that if your class can perform the role, you can do it. Final Fantasy XIV strictly ties every class/job to a role. If you are a marauder, which becomes a warrior, you are a tank. That's it. However, it works for this because you can just switch classes, no problem, on the same character and lose no progress.
Mm-hmm.
You can easily go, well, you know what? I don't want to be a tank. Let's look at the melee DPS jobs. Hey, monk sounds like, the pugilist sounds like more my thing. Let's play that, for example. I really enjoy how it does the class role system. Before Stormblood, they had cross-class abilities where you had to level other classes to get stuff for your current class. that has been very wisely taken out.
See, that's where you and I disagree.
Yeah,
I very much enjoyed the fact that I could grab a couple limited abilities from other classes that gave me some additional options in combat.
Yeah, I don't understand why you would want that. Because now I don't need to level a Marauder to 30 and a Pugilist to 15 to be a warrior. I just needed to get my Marauder to 30.
But that's two different things.
That's the same thing, because I also don't have to go level Gladiator to get a tank ability. Now what it does is every role has 10 abilities that you can pick and choose from to customize your own job.
But it's not good customization, it is in my opinion now.
It is really good customization.
It really isn't, because I've looked at the abilities that I get from, say, my archer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before, I was able to grab a counter ability from my Pugist. Or Puglist? Whatever the hell that class is.
Pugilist,
thank you. My Pug. And it gave me an additional attack on my hotbar I could use in certain cases. All the other ones on my bar now for the new system, I've got 4 fucking attacks that don't include one for pinning a person and one for making somebody slower. I've actually lost a great deal of my functionality for not being able to grab this and that from other classes.
You are the only person complaining about Archer and Bard.
Actually, I'm not.
I have seen nothing but praise for how that class has changed.
The forums are full of people saying, what the fuck, this is a bad change.
Yeah, it's not a bad change. Because
that's your opinion.
Yeah, thank you. I know. It's an opinion. Of course it's mine. It's not a bad change, though.
It is.
Because why should you need to go level a class you might not want to play just to get an ability? That's not customization. That's an ultimatum. Go do it and get the ability, or don't and you don't have the ability. That's not customization. That's you get it or you don't. That's not a choice.
It's your choice.
That is not a choice.
Yes, it
is. Okay, Dave, it's customization in Mario to not jump. That's customization. I can choose not to use this ability, and now I have customized Mario. Customization.
That's not it.
It is exactly.
You're talking a basic mechanic.
Yeah.
Versus, I've gone and decided to level into a Yoshi tree for Yoshi versus fucking flight.
Right. So you're wrong, because tanks before needed to jump into Gladiator to get a tank ability.
Okay.
Something they need for their role. So no, it is like not jumping in Mario. It is exactly like not jumping in Mario. To have to go and arbitrarily level a class you may not have any interest in just to get an ability. This is like in WoW, if as your druid, in order to get the battle res ability, you had to level a priest to 30. That is what you're asking for. You don't get the battle res unless you have a level 30 priest on your account.
See, I'm not so much complaining about them removing that.
You were literally arguing for it a second ago.
What I'm ultimately complaining about here is the fact that my customization of the character is so much more diminished now.
There was no customization.
Yes, there was.
There was none. You went and got an ability or didn't. There was no choice to it. The new system gives you choice.
It doesn't.
The only time you can have all the role abilities is if you play a max level class, which you almost never want to do because the jobs are more specialized and they get limited slots for that stuff. There was no customization before because you either had the ability or you didn't. How is that customization? You either had all your abilities.
It's your choice.
It's my choice not to jump in Mario. I don't know why you're saying my God when you're wrong. There's no customization needing to do an arbitrary task in another class you may not have any interest in to get an ability. It's either having the ability or not. How is that customization? It's not customization at all. You either have it or you don't.
Let me give you an example from my archer, okay?
Uh-huh.
I had protection and heal from my white mage.
Uh-huh.
And I had, again, the counter ability from my pug.
Uh-huh.
That was 3 abilities
that
I chose to get and chose to select from those other ones I'd leveled. That's still a choice. I chose to assign those.
I need to correct something because you're saying some objectively wrong things. You did not choose to get them. You leveled that class up, and then the game gave you the ability. That's not a choice. The choice was between having it and an empty space in your hotbar. That is not choice. That is...
It was my choice to level those classes to be able to use them.
It's my choice not to use the A button in Mario. You are literally describing...
Fine. It's your choice.
Yeah, except that's stupid.
Except that's not the game removing that ability.
No.
That's your choice that you don't use the A button.
No, it's not, because you don't have a choice to play Mario and actually do anything. There is no choice. You have to jump. There is no choice in pre-Stormblood to not go get all your class abilities. That's not a choice. If you don't go get them, you don't have all your class abilities. That's like in the hypothetical example where you don't get your Druid's Battle Res unless you have a level 30 Priest on your WoW account. If you don't have that level 30 Priest, you are not customizing your Druid by not having functionality. You are literally gimping your Druid. You are literally not jumping with Mario. You are literally just running into a pit or the first pipe and being unable to proceed. This is the thing you're lamenting as being gone when Square Enix made the right choice.
I don't believe they did.
This isn't an opinion anymore. They prevent you from having to go level a class you might not enjoy. If you want to go waste your time on a class that you had to level before, you are still free to do so.
No,
you can go play Pugilist to whatever level you wanted to.
If I want to, sure, but
you don't have to anymore.
I also don't get the abilities that I used to love.
Yeah, the patch changed. It changed the characters' tool sets. That happens in every patch in every MMO. Every single time. And they did kind of what the latest expansions in WoW did. There was a lot of
was a mistake.
Useless chafe abilities that could be baked down. Warriors in WoW did not need Heroic Strike and Cleave. They did not need that. So what did they do? They took Cleave out. They gave you an option to turn Heroic Strike into Cleave, weighed against other options on a talent tree that were roughly about as useful. That's customization.
And you see, that would be okay, but what they did is, instead of doing something like that, they've now gone, okay, well, here's your abilities.
Yeah, you literally...
There's no cut. There is zero.
That is 100%
customization now.
100% wrong.
No,
you literally open up your skill tab, go to roll, and you have limited slots of roll abilities that you have to pick and choose from. Literally customization now.
No, it's not customization.
It
because
is literally
guess
customization.
What? I start off with one fucking attack.
Uh-huh.
Guess what? I have one fucking spot in roll that I can fill.
Uh-huh.
At level 4, a second one opens up. Oh, look! I got a second skill and I got a second point on my hotbar. Fuck, that's customization.
It's totally customization.
It isn't.
It is absolutely customization because, first of all, you're talking about a class that isn't even max level. You get your job...
You shouldn't have to be max level to have customization.
So it is so wrong.
By level 70, I get 8 spots on my hotbar. I get 8 fucking attacks.
Wrong.
That's not customization.
Wrong. You are literally objectively wrong. That is if you stick to the class Archer, which is weaker than making it a Bard. The Bard is the advancement. Bard, that is the one thing classes have over jobs. Classes can use all the role abilities. Jobs can only at max level use up to 5 of them. And you have to pick and choose those 5. The trade-off, and this is customization again, because you can just literally take off your job crystal if you want to play the class and have all those abilities. The trade-off is the job has a lot of specialized abilities of its own. So you can literally, at max level, be a marauder with all the role abilities, or be a warrior, pick 5 of those abilities, your choice, and then have extra warrior abilities. And that's customization. Now I have one choice, which is the class, and the plethora of ways I can build my job. Literally customization where it didn't exist before. Before, I had to go arbitrarily level other classes to level 52 and 48 and 90 or whatever to get abilities that would appear for my warrior once I hit those levels. And the option, the customization you are so lamenting not having is just having nothing. You're literally arguing for a worse system that isn't even customization.
I still disagree with you.
Okay, you can disagree with the parts that are an opinion, like whether or not this is better, whether or not this is more enjoyable. You can disagree with that. You can't disagree with it being customization because the new system is objectively, and the old system was not objectively.
No, objectively is wrong here.
Objectively is correct.
Objectively, the old system was fully customization.
Zero customization. You are objectively wrong.
No, I'm not.
You are literally telling a lie.
No, I'm not.
You are. You are literally saying this thing that where you have a choice to jump or not is customization.
Oh my god.
Whereas in the new system, the basics are built into your class, and then you have a choice between options that, in theory, are equally weighted. In practice, of course, some are going to be better than others, but that can be fixed with later patching.
Your job is basically the same thing as the customization from before of leveling the other class.
Wrong, because as a job, I have to choose 5 of 10 roll abilities.
Great.
And I only get 5. Now there's a choice. Or, if I want all 10, I can choose to forego the job skills that the job has, take off the job soul crystal, and just have the class abilities plus those 10 roll abilities.
Or in
which
the old
may be
system,
weighted.
I could just have put some time into another class and grabbed one of those class abilities.
That is not customization. That is part of leveling your main class.
But it's
That is
not.
literally, that's like saying in the old system, instead of leaving my druid at 40, I could level it to 80. You are 100% wrong.
We're not
here.
going to agree here, obviously.
There's no agreement. You are objectively wrong.
No, I'm not.
So you're wrong about that. Other improvements made to Stormblood. The
yes,
PvP stuff.
let's move on.
We should move on because you're wrong. So the PvP stuff I still have to try, but obviously I like any system where there's no gear weight to PvP.
There shouldn't be.
There should be none. There should be none. WoW is finally learning this, even though there still is gear weight for some reason.
Guild Wars did that same sort of thing.
Yeah, and they were correct. Like
Guild Wars 2.
Guild Wars 2.
Guild Wars 1.
I don't know if Guild Wars 1 did
Guild
it.
Wars 1.
Okay.
Guild Wars 1 had a worse system where in the world you actually have to learn skills by having people attack you with them. And you could only actually learn it by having a special item that basically captured it. You can only learn those really powerful PvE and PvP skills inside dungeons.
Sure.
Worse.
Yeah, definitely worse. Because
I haven't done PvP either, so I can't comment on that part of it.
I do have a gripe, though, and this is an issue I have with Final Fantasy XIV and an issue I have with MMOs in general. That's that I can't just PvP right at the beginning. I have to get a class to 30 before I can unlock this. And I don't like that, because if I actually want to PvP in a game, I don't understand why the game's making me play a part of it maybe I'm not even interested in.
No, and actually, that is a flaw with Final Fantasy XIV, period.
Sure.
Because, and this is a gripe I had when I played it a couple years back, I don't like advancement being locked to grouping dungeons in the first place.
Sure.
You should be able to do that all solo. And the fact that Final Fantasy XIV decides to lock things behind having done storyline points, like the ability to get your mount, do materia,
sell shit at the auction house.
What are they? Retainers.
Retainers.
All that stuff is locked behind specific storyline points. And again, some of them actually require dungeons, which a couple years back, I ended up waiting almost 11 hours to get into a dungeon to get back over that little hurdle to do fucking retainers.
There have been quite a few improvements since then.
And this is just it. Things have improved greatly. There are reasons for higher level players to go back into old dungeons. Therefore, the Duty Finder actually works. Back when I was playing, it really didn't. I mean, you should never have to wait that long to do a dungeon. Half an hour if you're doing a DPS class, still kind of sucks, but at least you're getting there.
Yeah, it's... As a tank roll, I get in right away.
Yeah.
I guess healers wait slightly longer, and then the DPS job's gotta wait a while. Not helped by the fact that Heavensward
added 2 DPS classes.
Well, Stormblood did. Heavensward added a tank and a healer.
Mm-hmm.
Stormblood added 2 DPS classes.
Yes.
Not very bright.
No, it wasn't. And I'm seeing that from a lot of talk within our guild.
Yeah, it's like every duty finder group I'm in, it's me, a healer, and the other 2 are either a red mage or a samurai, or both. And I mean...
yeah, it doesn't exactly have a very good balance. But then again, WoW was the same thing.
Sure.
If you were a healer or a tank, you were guaranteed for a group really quick. If you were a DPS, you were fucking waiting. In a way,
this is kind of the issue with the trifecta. I'm not a big fan of the trifecta, but that's not something I'm going to bore people with again.
Other things that I still find that Final Fantasy XIV does wrong. The crafting system is still pretty bulky. It still takes lots of time to do stuff, and that's what made me quit the last time.
Sure.
Because I found that I was doing split screen. I was watching The Walking Dead on one half and the other crafting, and when I realized I was paying more attention to the TV show rather than the game, it was time to quit. Now, especially with my monitor, 34-inch widescreen, I can do half and half, no problem, and just have lots of fun.
Oh, even though Final Fantasy XIV's music is fan-fucking-tastic, I still listen to podcasts when I play, including when I'm grouping with people. Because MMOs I don't need to take too seriously, and so far the content hasn't really demanded too much of my attention. I run in, I spam my AoE a bunch, and everything's on me. And other classes that can outdamage my threat generally can kill the target before they start getting really hurt.
Yeah.
So, the Red Mage looks super cool. I saw videos of it. I've seen people play it.
Yeah.
Super cool looking class. I love that this Red Mage isn't using the same spells as White and Black Mage. They have their own spells. They have a balanced druid mechanic where they have white and black mana. And then, they have a reason, like they're mainly ranged magic DPS, but then their physical abilities get buffed by their magic that they can do into some fancy swordplay.
Yeah.
They're not a shitty white mage, a shitty black mage, and a shitty warrior rolled into one shitty package. They are literally a class that needs to combine its versatility to function and does it with style.
As much as I may bemoan what I called customization for my character being lost, the vanilla skills they give most of their classes and the way they built their classes are, I think, way better than how WoW did that.
WoW's better now for that.
Well, WoW's better now, but, I mean, this game hasn't been around for as long as WoW in its good iteration.
True, and admittedly, Final Fantasy XIV's best elements are borrowed and rejiggered from WoW.
Some things I wish they'd do a little bit better. Number one, transportation. I think it's a little bit expensive to move it in the game.
I just like that I can teleport close to wherever I want.
I like it, but it costs too much. I'm always looking at that, I'm like, okay, I could just basically walk on my chocobo over there, or I could spend 500 gil.
You could take some more time and just go to a ferry or an airship, and it's way cheaper to do it that way. I'm lazy, so I just teleport to the nearest crystal.
Yeah, see,
something Kiki did is she had a high-level friend just literally, I guess you can get 2-man mounts.
Yeah.
Literally carry her to every crystal she attuned to it, so she literally can teleport anywhere in the world.
No, and that's fair enough, and I get why they do what it was, but they don't exactly... They don't make it easy to get around without spending your hard-earned gil. And for a crafter who has spent so much time going out in the world and basically mining and using the botany skill to actually get all my stuff, I'm not willing to spend 800 fucking gil to teleport across the map.
I totally understand
kind of
that.
thing.
I understand that. And since I'm not doing crafting, I have spent 0 money on crafting.
And that's just it.
When you go do the novice hall stuff where you do little trials for your role, the gear you get off that, I'm still using some of those pieces 15 levels later.
Really?
They are still better than a lot of story quest rewards. I have not done many quests outside of story quests, but I wanted to mention, since there's so many of them, theoretically, if you didn't want to do a mandatory group part as part of the story quests, you could just outlevel the dungeon and come back later. and just solo it.
That's possible?
That is possible. It takes a while to get to that point, but you can do it. However, even a hardcore soloist like me just queued up in the damn duty finder and just did it that way. I did it. I had Kiki run me through the first such mandatory dungeon with her high level character, and she just turned off the option to level sync. I just didn't get experience, but I still got the quest acknowledgement. The other two dungeons, or every dungeon since, I've literally just queued up and played with strangers. And I find the community for this game on Sargatanas, most players are either polite or quiet. And I am totally okay with both.
Yes.
If we go into a group and nobody says anything and we just power through the content silently, 100% okay with that. If occasionally we have people who are a little chatty but are polite, totally okay with that too. No problem. One thing I kind of wish MMOs did, Final Fantasy XIV included, Final Fantasy XIV puts a little mark on a person when they're new to a dungeon, which has surprisingly not led to abuse. Most people are very helpful. And I guess there's a veteran reward system to help newbies through dungeons. So, hey, great. I did kind of wish, though, that, and WoW does this a little better, having dungeon guides which specifically talk about every boss, what their abilities are, and what you have to watch out for. Because, honestly, that's a lot of memory space to dedicate to remembering, okay, this boss has a weird environmental mechanic that will kill you if you don't move out of this spot right away. And sure, the game does kind of help you a little bit by having the targeting circles that you generally just need to move out of, but sometimes that's not enough. And I honestly feel MMOs need to do a better job. That MMOs need to... I know there's an issue in 14 where some people get booted for watching the cutscenes, and even though I skip every cutscene, I don't want to ruin anyone's fun if they're not skipping the cutscene. I honestly think there should be a quick little refresher before bosses, like a quick little ready check that says, okay, in 1 minute we start the boss unless you get ready, and you can choose to take that 1 minute to quickly just read up a little guide that comes up that goes, okay, what's this guy again? Okay, here are my Cliff Notes things. Avoid horrible shot and get out of the way of horrible acid pool. Okay, I'm good. I'm ready to fight this boss, instead of needing the other player to go, I better let this guy know that there's a mechanic he has to watch out for before he gets exploded in the face by a bomb.
Okay, so throughout that last few minutes, I've had a couple things go through my mind.
Go ahead.
Part of me wants to say, learn the fight, scrub.
Sure.
However, the more logical, player-friendly version of me is like, I understand exactly what you're saying.
It's just there's a lot.
There
there's so
are
many dungeons
and
across multiple MMOs.
And
can we reach a compromise and say, okay, maybe the first month that a dungeon is new or a raid is new, that guide isn't there, and then after that month it appears?
Actually, I don't agree with you on that. I think the first run through a dungeon, that guide, no. Fuck you.
Very easy to circumvent that by just going online.
Absolutely. But look, I've been a big fan of WoW for a very long time, and I was one of the first people through the gate when it came to the Lich King instance. In fact, me and my group was doing the dungeon probably about half an hour before anybody else was.
Sure.
But one of my members of my party had already fucking hit YouTube and watched all the battles. And he's telling us all the encounters. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. The first time I'm in here, I don't want some asshole telling me about all the encounters. The first time I'm in here, I want to encounter them normally.
Counterpoint to that. That person wants to just get over it. Wants just get on with it. And here's the thing: neither of you are wrong. The real villain is forced grouping. You should be able to solo any dungeon in an MMO.
And that's just it. Is after that dungeon, I didn't dungeon with him anymore. That whole expansion to max level, because I knew he was going to do that. And for him, it's getting through the dungeon as fast as possible and knowing everything about it. For me, I want to encounter the dungeon for the first time without having somebody tell me, okay, well, this guy's going to do this and that and that. And even with this whole veteran system with Final Fantasy XIV, I've still got to suffer through that because I don't want to hold back the other members of my party.
Sure.
And that's a problem in itself. I can't just tell the group, shut the fuck up and let me go through this on my own, because now I'm holding them back.
And that's partly why, first of all, I don't care about the Final Fantasy XIV story at all. But one benefit of skipping all the story is that I can just patiently wait for people who want to watch it, or just speed on through with people who don't. And that's exactly it. There's definitely a balance to find. Again, the enemy is forced grouping. There's ways to incentivize grouping without needing to force it on players. Everything should scale down all the way to one person. And people are like, oh, they need the servers. Yeah, you know what? I'm pretty sure the influx of money from solo players who will pay for this will help with that. Yeah. And technology is improving all the time. That's kind of the issue. You should be able to, on your first run of Ice Crown, be able to just solo the whole thing. Even if it's a tourist mode. Yeah, that is really, really easy. And then from there, go through the group stuff where you don't have to sit through the cutscenes. You can just go through the fights with a friend.
Funny enough, and I'm going to reference back to Final Fantasy XI for this. Mm-hmm. 11, because of the whole forced grouping and just how it was done, and how certain builds were the only acceptable stuff, I didn't make it very far. During a Valentine's Day event, I saw more of the dungeons that I'd never been in than any other time, because they basically had to find a person of the other sex in the game, and you basically popped up in a dungeon that was still had all the enemies, but they wouldn't see you. But you got to see the actual dungeon and even some of the bosses while walking through the dungeon trying to find the other person, like a maze kind of situation. I wish tourist mode existed. Even if I can't, like, look, if you want to take it to the point where the person kind of walks through the dungeon, doesn't fight because they're invisible or something, and gets to see the boss and see like a mock battle of the players fighting, even something like that is better than just saying fuck you group or nothing else. I still want that solo, my level, I get to take out the dungeon, absolutely. But tourist mode is the minimum there should be for that. Why can't I see this dungeon that you created
on your own terms?
On my own terms.
No, and yeah, again, you're not wrong, and that other guy isn't wrong. It's just the game forces you to coexist. I put a big suggestion once on the WoW forums. Some people liked it, some people hated it. And the suggestion was that, okay, since it seems that they don't mind adding weird mini games that are completely unlike WoW, like pet battles.
Yeah.
They were willing to add Pokemon to WoW, basically. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, a lot better than Pokemon.
Yeah.
In some ways. I was wondering, I suggested, look at Final Fantasy Tactics and add like a Final Fantasy Tactics component where you can use the followers in your garrison, and now obviously the followers in your order hall, and all the characters on your account as jobs, as units, in a grid-based kind of environment where you can go through every dungeon in the game in a turn-based Final Fantasy Tactics way, where you still get the story and the cutscenes, and you get challenging fights that might have maybe you can work towards raid rewards slowly, or maybe it'll have its own reward system. Yep. And it could be the more story-heavy thing, because there are people who are pining to enjoy the WarCraft story on their own like they used to be able to, and now can't because of the particulars of an MMO. They have to wait until the video comes out on YouTube later, which is how I experience the WoW story these days. I literally just watch the raid cutscenes on YouTube after the fact. And I mean, if I cared about the Final Fantasy XIV story, I would totally do that, even if I was going to raid the place, so that I didn't have to wait through the cutscenes during the raid, right? And maybe there's a case to make that MMOs need to include more ability to solo the content. Maybe if it's too hard to scale down to one person, add a mini game like that. An offline component, maybe. Like, I'm pretty sure you could take... Some MMO engines are actually really decent, like WildStar, and even Final Fantasy XIV. I enjoy... The slower pace makes it a lot more understandable than WoW. Mm-hmm. You could have an offline FF14 engine game, and it would be way better than that garbage FF12 was ever trying to be an offline MMO. Fuck that game. Maybe that's the way you let people enjoy the story while still letting the MMO exist.
Neither one of us have gone to either expansion packs content yet.
Not yet, but I mean, I looked at a Dark Knight and I'm like, you know what? Okay, I have my warrior now finally, and to get a Dark Knight, I have to take the story to a certain level, and part of the reason I jumped into Final Fantasy XIV is the same reason I'll play any MMO, because enough people I like wanted me to play. A friend of the show, Kiki, a bunch of friends, and now you are on board. So,
and I jumped in for the same reason. But let me ask you this then: what is, other than the fact that some new zones opened up and a couple new classes, what, with your way of playing, what's the point of expansion content?
To see new areas, to fight new
enemies? You obviously don't give a flying fuck.
Zero.
About the story.
It's because I've always liked Final Fantasy job systems, and I've always wanted a Final Fantasy job system grafted onto WoW, which is what Final Fantasy XIV at a very basic level totally is. Because ultimately I like the rotations and the figuring out how to fight enemies and live in that system.
Because I've made sure that my main screen doesn't stay there long enough to play the intro video to either the last expansion or this expansion, because I know they're major spoilers.
Oh man, on the PS4, the loading screen for the game is a major spoiler. So it's a good thing you're not playing on that version. I'm not playing on a PS4 Pro. Apparently there are PS4 Pro enhancements to this game that make it look better. Like, you can choose a smoothing, like an option that makes it play smoother, or an option that makes it play the same frame rate, but more lush and detailed. One issue with the PS4 is that I play on a Logitech G600 mouse, which is one of those MMO mice that have a number pad on the side. One cool thing about this mouse is that the mouse software let me hard code number pad inputs to those keys. Then I just uninstalled the software. That's all saved on the mouse. And every computer recognizes that, and so does so does Final Fantasy XIV on PlayStation 4. So I literally was able to assign those to my hotbar. One issue with the mouse support is that normally lag-free mouse experience. There's a check mark for expanded mouse functionality on PS4, which lets you have to check it off to do things like make the cursor bigger, add mouse trails, and change the pointer speed. You can change the camera speed, but not the pointer speed.
Interesting.
You turn on that mode, and on my mouse at least, now it lags. Now it lags, I'd say, about 15 frames.
Ooh.
So about a quarter of a second. And because I want to make the cursor bigger, because I'm an old man, and I want a big cursor, so I know I want to be able to click and rotate freely without accidentally unclicking a target, for instance.
Okay.
I've had to just be much more precise in my inputs.
Okay.
The only analogy I can think of is that there are certain fighting games where there's a priority system which makes it so that a Dragon Punch input has priority over a Fireball input. So if you do forward, quarter circle forward, you get a Dragon Punch, even if your character had a Fireball. Skullgirls fixes that by letting you put in a half circle, which always gets you the Fireball, or the Dragon Punch, which also always gets you the Dragon Punch. There are some games where the Fireball takes precedence. And in those games, inputting a Dragon Punch is just about the most impossible thing in the world. That's not quite how I feel not being able to make my mouse cursor bigger in the PS4 version. But it is kind of close. It annoys me. I wish I could just make it bigger. And since I bought Heaven's Sword and Stormblood on PS4, that's going to be the system I keep playing it on, even when I get a computer going. So, Final Fantasy XIV. If you're looking for a new MMO and WoW has pissed you off, give 14 a try.
I also dislike how you have to pay to increase your storage space.
Yeah, counterpoint, they give you so much storage space.
Okay.
By default.
Keep in mind, I'm talking as a crafter. Okay,
fair enough.
As a crafter who's doing every crafting.
As a non-crafter, I was worried I was going to run out of bag room before I reached the point of getting a retainer to sell things. I don't think I even filled a quarter of my bag slots.
And you know something?
This is one good thing. I hate how every enemy in WoW drops junk. that is totally there just to make its item database bigger and to have shit to sell. In this game, the drops are way fewer, and sometimes you just get money like you should.
Yeah, and every item that drops, every single one, is used for crafting in some way, shape, or form.
Even the doubloons that you just sell for gil, that are sometimes a quest reward. I'm pretty sure those are not.
That is the one type of item in the game that I don't think you need for a craft.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't, because I read that you don't. And honestly, the quest reward is like, here's a bunch of armor upgrades, or take the money.
Well, and that's just it. For somebody like me, who is crafting his own shit, I have a set of gear that thankfully does all of my crafting, all of my harvest gathering, and then my single class I'm doing for leveling. That takes a lot. So whenever those quest rewards come up, I'm always choosing the frickin' doubloon. Now, granted, I'm actually doing quite well for money right now. I'm over 200k. And I could, if I want to, I could just start using all my materials to make lots and lots of money, but where's the fun in that? So if you don't do any crafting at all...
0.
Have you gone to the point in the storyline where you choose a faction?
Yeah.
So you're never increasing your rank?
No, you can increase your rank without it.
Can you?
Yeah. I just keep doing things that get me the little tickets.
Oh.
Yeah. Which involves fates. A bunch of which you can actually solo with enough potions, which are fairly cheap.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
I picked my company based on what looked cooler.
Actually, that's what most do.
And I picked a company based on the city I started in. Oh, this is the one thing I gotta complain about. Ever since Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy character names have been getting stupider and stupider and stupider. In Final Fantasy VI, the main character was Terra. In Japan, Tina. That game also featured an Edgar. Featured a few kind of odd names that still sounded cool, like Sabin or Mash. The English version was better there. Cyan, Gao, Umaro. Stuff that sounded exotic, but was still within reason. 7 gave us characters like Cloud. Okay, fine. His name is supposed to be...
Tifa, Barrett.
Yeah, you got names like Tifa and Barrett. Real names, or cool-sounding exotic names like Cloud, for instance. 8 did the same thing with Squall and Renoa and Zell. Right? Maybe, but 8 even, they had Quistis. And that's kind of where things started snowballing. Because in 9, 9 still was pretty reasonable. You had Zidane, which is, there's a real soccer player named that.
Yeah.
You had Garnet, you had Steiner, Vivi, names within reason. And then we get to 10. And then we get to 10, Titus. Now, there's still some cool names like Yuna and Lulu.
Yeah.
And then we get Waka! And this is where the names start going out of control.
Oh, come on. That name came from somebody who's just watching, the Muppets.
Yes. And then I remember there were a lot of stupid names in 11, but I think I've blocked out a lot of that game. 12. So, man, 12. We got Bosch von Ronsenberg. We got fucking, Penello. What the fuck name is Penello?
It's an abbreviation for Penelope.
Yeah, gross. We have some cool names like Balthier. Fantastic sounding name. And then there's 10-2 with Noosh. Noosh! 13.
Well, that you see that sound you're making? Noosh?
Yeah.
Basically, it's kind of describes the Final Fantasy X-2 experience. How did you like that? Noosh!
You're right. That noise is exactly what it describes that game. 13 gave us such classics like Snow and Yagrosh and Vanille. Vanille's okay. Now,
Lightning, come on.
Let's jump over... Lightning's fine. Let's jump over 14 and go to 15, and we have Gladiolus. Prompto! And then 14. I hate every name in this game. Every single one I despise. I started in the city of Limsa Limonsa.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And...
Okay, listen. As a person who's following the storyline quite in-depthly and is very interested, pretty much it's that chick who's in that place, or that little dude who runs that place. I gave up trying to remember who the fuck everybody is, because keep in mind, again, because I'm doing crafting, I'm doing class jobs for every single one. So it's like, okay, it isn't Lamoule who's doing the crafting, the guild master for carpentry. It's the guild master for the carpentry guild.
How do you remember a name? There's a person in the Marauders Guild in all the quests. His name is probably the worst name I've ever heard. Solquib. SOLKWYB.
Okay, the spelling's retarded, but I've heard worse. Like, there are...
Do you remember the 3 followers of Sephiroth from Advent Children?
Oh, God.
They had shitty names.
Yes. Like, look, I realize you want to come up with independent, individual names for all of your NPCs in these different areas, but the names to some of the people in Gridania...
Not a bad sounding.
Not actually. That sounds very much like a colonial name from like the British Empire. I'm okay with that one. I hate going to your fucking hometown.
Limsa Limonza.
At least I can fucking walk over to Uthalok.
These Klingon names.
That one, the first time I heard somebody actually say it, I'm like, can you say it again and not Klingon? Like, what actually is it? Uthkalok? Or Uthkwok?
It's one of those. It's the worst, these names.
Wow.
I looked a bunch of them up. These are not based on real world names. A lot of language Square's making up. Sometimes they hit the nail on the head. Like, in the English versions of various Evilist games, they call the various necromantic undead cities necrohalls.
Sure.
Kinda cool.
Yes.
Not a term that existed in reality, but it makes sense. Even the term Dissidia.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a cool term. It's supposed to bring up feelings of dissonance, right? Okay. I get that. But it's like they don't have a... Some of them are like Solquib, Nuj, Yagrosh. Yeah, these sound good. Just vomit out these terrible names.
And that's just it. Is again, as do
you know the name of the god in the Final Fantasy XIII universe? Boonavels. The final boss of Lightning Returns.
Great.
Boonavels, aka Jesus.
Look, you and I can both agree that the naming conventions have gotten out of hand. Okay.
They are out of control.
I mean, yes.
Cecil Harvey. We took for granted that name.
I mean, one of my retainers' name, I just wanted to use the name Mercy, but of course, obviously that would have been taken like week 1.
You can't have duplicate retainer names?
No, they're unique.
Oh, that sucks.
All I did was I did what any good RPG player would do. The
apostrophe
C. Masset.
Mercier.
Yeah. But that's what Square's taken to the next level.
I'm glad that they're on skill names based off these characters.
Oh.
If I had a skill named Soulquip Strike, I might just quit the game and protest. Oh, God.
So yeah, naming conventions. Have you watched even a single... Like, you said you found the videos boring.
I just don't care. It's like, oh, the creature killed my dad. Yeah. Who do I gotta kill? That's how I view it.
Okay.
I avenged your sister's death, little boy. Father. Whatever. Give me money.
How do you like the environments? Well, let's talk about the actual,
Keep in mind I'm playing on a PS4. So obviously I don't have quite the rich graphical detail that a monster PC will have, but since the game was built by Square for this console, it does run really nicely, very smoothly, and very prettily.
Okay.
Prettily. That's a word, right?
I must say
or is that a final... Okay, let's play a game. Is this a word or a Final Fantasy character name? Prettily.
Both.
Okay. You know what? Let's put a rain check on that, because next time I'm going to come back with words.
Fair enough.
Is it a Final Fantasy character name or a real word? And I'm going to challenge you on this.
Sure. So, on my monster computer, it looks beautiful. I mean, the character details look great. The trees look like actual trees. They're not the rotating 2D sprites that sometimes WoW seems to be. Even, like, you gotta give Final Fantasy even back to pre-Realm Reborn. The trees were actual full-fledged trees with branches and everything else. They were not just...
Hell, I'll argue even Final Fantasy XI is still a good-looking game.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a very pretty
They
did
advance it quite well throughout the various expansions. But, I mean, I'm looking forward to diving into the water and doing some of the fishing stuff that... Okay, look, I'm a crafter.
No, that's fine.
I harvest,
Dave,
I mine.
I might mock your crafting, but I'm going to spend an absurd amount of time in triple triad, so I can't really judge you.
My god, is fishing fucking boring. At least in WoW, you're guaranteed that fishing attempt is only going to take 10 seconds kind of thing.
Pop quiz. Best fishing minigame. Breath of Fire 3 or Sonic Adventure?
Breath of Fire 3, hands down.
Easily. Should every MMO just use the Breath of Fire 3 fishing system? Correct. You may continue.
That was a fun minigame. I lost myself for hours in.
Yeah, me too. And I hate fishing.
I know.
Like, I am gonna hook this whale.
That's just it.
Pull Ryu.
When you introduce the cool mini games like that, you want to come back. But in this, literally, I cast glowy thing on the end of my fishing rod, and then I wait for the glowy thing to go down once to hit the button to pull.
Do you want to hear a confession?
Sure.
I would totally be okay if the cat fishing mechanics were MMO fishing mechanics. Because those despite everyone seeing Aaron suffer in Game Grumps through this fishing.
Oh, he sucked.
He sucked. All you have to do to hook the fish is just quickly tap down like a real fishing line.
Yeah.
Admittedly, the game should tell you that.
Oh, absolutely.
That said, as a fishing minigame and not a required part of the game, that would be cool. That would be way better than the way most MMOs do it. And WoW is not really any better. You literally hit your fishing hotbar button, and then you click the lure when it bobs. That's not fun at all. That was
tedious.
It's just tedious. I have more fun finding mining nodes and out of the way nooks and crannies.
You know what else was tedious? Final Fantasy XV's fishing.
I still have to buy and play Final Fantasy XV. I actually accidentally bought Final Fantasy XV on PSN, and Sony was nice enough to believe me when I said I thought I was buying 14 to actually refund it and let me buy 14.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Weird mistake, but still.
Yeah, here's the thing. Dave, I am a nigh perfect being. Yet, only human.
So yeah, graphics are great. Music, as long as you're going through the game and actually going to new areas, is fine. But I have crafted so much in the main cities, I mute that shit now because I have heard the same tune for way too many fucking hours.
Even though I listen to podcasts a lot when I play MMOs, the truth is the Final Fantasy XIV soundtrack is fucking incredible. Hell, you know what? I've argued that the WoW soundtrack is incredible because it is. But it's very orchestral. It's technically really good, but Final Fantasy XIV has intense JRPG boss music.
Yes, it does.
The Fate boss theme is no joke one of my favorite boss themes.
Fair enough.
It's something that if they ever made a Final Fantasy VI-2, I would love to hear it as a boss theme.
Music is good. Graphics are good.
I did turn off the mount music because I don't need to hear the Chocobo theme every time I mount up. I like that a lot of mounts have unique music, but I don't need my Ahriman music when it comes up in my mount roulette.
I am glad that they used a version of the original versus the monstrosity they came up with 13.
I heard that, and I wanted to... Here's the thing, there is some good music in 13.
Sure.
I've heard some good music in 13.
That was not one of them.
I wanted to rip out my eyeballs when I heard that. I don't know why my eyeballs, because it's listening and not sight.
The fact they actually had to have somebody singing on there was...
The UI in 14 is really nice. I think it's very pretty and sleek. It lets you resize and reposition a lot of stuff. My only gripe is that every job, not class, but job, has a unique job gauge now. And those things are really big. And there's a lot of jobs that don't use MP period that they probably could have just shoved on the MP section, but...
That's one thing I do wish they let you do is resize the bars.
You can resize the bars.
You get to choose by their gauges whether you want it to be this big, so many rows, etc. I'm talking an actual draggable. I want my, like, for example, I've got all of my jobs as bars, okay?
You might want to actually,
classes.
if you don't mind me interrupting a moment, you might want to actually pair a PS4 controller to your computer, because when you're doing the UI edits on the PS4 at least, the PS4 pad can be used to make minute adjustments, like just taps to move it a pixel, and clicking in the right stick lets you choose between a bunch of different sizes for every element.
Oh.
You might want to do that. I'm pretty sure there's a way to do that on keyboard and mouse.
I'll look that up.
But you have PlayStation 4 controllers. You have Xbox controllers which work on this game, so...
Exactly. Because yeah, like, again, because I've got 2 full bars, my 5 and 6, that are taken up by the different classes that I can switch back and it would be nice to actually make those way smaller, so they take up less retail space. Because I'm not using them all the time, but they do take up.
Oh man, you can make them really small. I use hotbars 1 through 4, and 3 and 4 I have shaped to be identical to the number pad on the side of my mouse, which is nice. The rest of the hotbars are super tiny. I'm talking about they are a tenth of the size of the rest, and put into the corner and made invisible because I never use them. So you might want to look into that, into just quickly plugging a controller in and clicking on that right stick.
Might do that right after we're done here. But anything else to that game that we have to talk about?
I can't think of anything. I think we're done. We've been recording for near 2 hours now, so... Alright, let's wrap up. We are Two Fat Guys Talk. We are the best podcast on the internet for whatever the fuck it is we do. We also do the best anime review and reaction show on the internet, Carlos and Dave Anime Rave. You can find either of those at our website, which you can get to by either twofatguystalk.com or animerave.xyz.